What's going on, guys? Wei Koh from Revolution, here to unveil the mysteries of one of the most interesting movements in the Swiss watch industry, and it is the Hublot Unico in-house movement, or rather I should say Unico 2. Since 2019, we had the relaunch of this movement in an even more impressive version. But next to me is the gentleman who is actually behind the development of the movement, and his name is Christophe Lyner. How are you, sir?
Nice to meet you. I'm fine.
So today, guys, we're here to dispel some myths. So one of the key myths related to the Unico is that it is in fact a clone or a copy of the venerable Valjoux 7750. And I've come to realize over my conversation with Christophe that nothing could be further from the truth. But let's start at the beginning of this project. Let's go back in time to 2009 to the creation of the Unico movement. So Christophe, why was the Unico created and who were the people behind it?
The birth of this movement,
Yeah.
it was a project and a dream of Mr. Beaver. Mr. Beaver wanted a very special and unique movement. This is why he chose this name, Unico. He wanted to have the chronograph mechanism on the dial side, so that the owner of the movement, of the watch, can see all the mechanism, especially the clutch and the column wheel.
Right. Christophe, why do you think people get confused and think that the Unico is a relationship to the 7750?
There is nothing to see. All the architecture from the beginning to the end is very different.
Yes, so I totally agree with this. And guys, what I want to show you now is an image of the Unico 1. And what you're going to see here is, first of all, exactly what Christophe was talking about, where you have the chronograph train facing the front of the watch on the dial side. Mm-hmm. And there you will see the column wheel, which is incidentally, the Valjoux 7750 is using a cam. So what kind of clutch mechanism does the Valjoux 7750 have? It has the very famous oscillating pinion, right? So you have a little pinion, and it will engage the chronograph wheel just by sliding over, I guess, a couple of degrees, right? Look at the Unico 1, you'll see the horizontal clutch. Now, even then, something really interesting was created by this gentleman here, because what happens in a lateral clutch normally is that you have a chronograph wheel driving an intermediate wheel, which is then driving the chronograph minute counter, which usually has a jumper mechanism, meaning it's got a spring that's blocking it from moving forward by itself, right?
Exactly.
So all of these are parasitical devices and draw power from there. So this brilliant dude, he said, okay, what if we were to power the minute counter directly from the barrel, correct, sir?
Yes. Sir.
So tell me about how you did that.
Of course, taking the energy of the barrel is better for the precision of the watch, and it's easier because you don't need, for example, the jumper to give the position to the wheels of the counter. It's also a very different architecture from classical watches. It's unique.
But in order to achieve that, this gentleman had to do something very special. And so now I'm going to show you two really cool wheels. And these are the wheels that were used to power the minute counter off of the barrel. Tell me what these two wheels, if I'm not mistaken, using LIA Technology.
Oh, yes.
What are these?
This technology, it's known since many years, but used in watchmaking since about 10 years, maybe 10 or 15 years.
If I'm not mistaken, LIA Technology is like a photolithography technology that allows you to create parts in very small sizes, down even to the microns, but with really complicated shapes at extremely high precision. So you're basically building these parts up in materials like nickel phosphorus, right? Mm-hmm. And what this allows you to do is create teeth like the ones that you see here that are actually flexible and have no play. In fact, they're kind of like spring-loaded. So what you have here is one wheel below, which is being driven directly by the barrel, right?
Yes, it turns very slowly.
Right.
This is why we need no play between the two tools.
Right, exactly. And then on top of that, coaxial to it, you have a second wheel, which if you look at it, it's got a lot more teeth than the wheel on the bottom, and that has a multiplying effect. And that is going to an intermediate wheel driving the minute counter.
Right.
So then that's really cool. Like I'd never seen this before, and it goes to show you the level of innovation that was already in existence for the Unico 1. Would you agree, sir?
Yes.
If you are going to say that the Unico is in some ways related to the Valjoux 7750, the thing that you identify first probably is this idea of a rotor wobble, right? So the 7750 is very famous for having a unidirectional winding system that when the rotor is spinning in the non-winding direction, it causes the watch to vibrate. And I think we've all experienced that. Already in the Unico one, you have a completely different winding system, and it was a magic lever winding system, right? Which is in some ways derived from the Peloton winding system. Then Seiko improved it with its magic levers. And you were using a lever system which is bidirectional already in the Unico one.
Winding in both directions, so it's very efficient,
right?
Reliable also,
and reliable. Now you want to go from the Unico 1 to the Unico 2 in 2019, so 10 years later. And I know that one key thing that you wanted to do is diminish the size of that movement. So you want to go from 8.05 in terms of thickness to 6.75 in terms of thickness. And a couple of things that you did made this possible. The first is the integration of the chronograph train and all the time-telling train onto one plate on either side. So you have a real integration of the movement. Initially, you had created the Unico to be kind of modular, so you would be able to take from it a three-handed movement you could build complications on. Now you decide to make a specific signature complicated movement
fully integrated. Yes.
Fully integrated. First of all. Then second of all, you changed the winding system because your levers were a bit thick. So you've gone to now a winding system which is still bidirectional, but using ball bearings, correct?
Exactly. We made a lot of improvement on the friction of the chronograph.
Let's talk about the clutch mechanism first, because you have a lateral or horizontal clutch in the first Unico, and then in the Unico 2, you have an oscillating system, but it's not a pinion. It's a full clutch, and it's also using two sets of incredible nickel phosphorus LIA wheels, which you can actually see from the front of the watch. Tell me about this clutch system.
Yes, exactly. With the horizontal clutch, we have two known problems. The first is when you start the chronograph, there is a jump of the hand. You can see the hand jumping on the...
Right. It's from the imprecise meshing of the teeth, correct?
Exactly. On G's translation,
yes.
Make this turning. Yes.
Yes.
And the second one is that we have also play between the tooths, and the hand is has vibration.
Yes.
Yes.
And in order to fix this vibration, if I'm not mistaken, Christophe, you've got to put like a friction plate underneath it, which kind of creates a braking effect on that, but it's actually very difficult to adjust, because if it's not done to the correct amount of tolerances, you've got to take the whole system apart and adjust it and put it back together again.
Yes.
Right.
This is why we have a patent of a new mechanism who was inspired by the pinion of the Valjoux, but with LIA tooth reels.
Right. So here you're saying, okay, one of the most efficient ways of creating a chronograph is with an oscillating pinion, but you're going to do an oscillating full clutch. Now, what this allows you to is to always be geared to the seconds wheel with the lower wheel, that's the LIA wheel, and then the top wheel, it actually it oscillates by 3 degrees and engages the chronograph wheel, right? And because, now look at the profile of these teeth, right? Now, actually what's really cool is that you can see the activation of this clutch from the front of your watch. And it's now become one of my favorite things to do, because you can see it like just engaging and disengaging, and it's just so cool to look at, right? So if you look at it, the teeth are also spring-loaded so that you eliminate a lot of this backlash or movement in terms of the teeth. And then on top of that, yes, every chronograph still needs to have a friction system to keep the hand from vibrating, but now you have a friction system that you've created, which is really easy to adjust because it's adjusted using a screw directly in the center of the rotor, right? The rotor assembly. And that screw adjusts the spring tension on a helicoidal spring, which is then putting pressure on the ceramic ball bearing, which is then putting pressure on the staff of the chronograph hand, right?
Yeah, right.
Dude, it's so cool, right?
We are very proud of this system.
Yes.
And it's very efficient too. And it allows the watchmaker to fine-tune the friction on the chronograph wheel when the movement is already in the case. And this is very convenient. Our watchmaker really love it.
Yes, it's really cool. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned all these things as well, because I'm just now pressing the start and stop function on this watch. I'm looking at just between 8 and 7 o'clock, there is a skeletonized part of the dial where you can see the clutch bridge and the Liga clutch wheel with its very special profile of teeth engaging the chronograph wheel. But I have to say the action, the start and the stop, is effortless to use, right? It's like the perfect amount of pressure. You know, some of the older school watches, actually the Valjoux, for example, it's a beast. Like when you press it, it breaks at a specific point, but you have to put so much pressure. This is effortless to use. Why is it so easy to use?
Actually, we can change the forces on the pusher.
Wow.
If you want more,
No, I don't want more.
It's possible.
Right.
It's just we have to change the force of our spring.
Amazing.
It was a choice of Mr. Guadalupe
For the Unico too?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
but it's the perfect amount of pressure. Now what's really cool is like as soon as I press the start button and the chronograph drive wheel engages with the chronograph wheel, you all simultaneously have the clutch for the minute counter being driven by the barrel engaged at the same time, right?
The same.
So you've got double
similar
clutches.
system, yes.
Also with an
yes,
oscillating
exactly.
clutch wheel with Liga wheels as well.
The oscillating clutches was already existing on the Unico
Unico
1,
right.
on the minutes
Yes.
counter, and it was we have seen that it works very well. So we tried it also on the second.
That's awesome.
And it works very good. And what is so nice is that we removed all the problems from the horizontal clutch, but we keep the strong construction of the horizontal clutch.
Yeah.
And if I had put a vertical clutch inside,
You wouldn't see anything.
you will not see the mechanism.
He's made a bunch of other chronograph movements. I can't say which ones. And so he's played with all the different systems, correct?
Yes,
And this one is excellent.
the first.
And then the other thing that I want to talk to you about is this really cool regulator for the balance wheel, right? So, I mean, I guess it's actually the regulator changing the active length of the hairspring, right? And I noticed that it also seems like it's made out of Liga, and in fact it is. And it's got kind of an interesting shape to it that's spring-loaded. Talk to me about that.
So it's not very innovative, but
It's pretty innovative.
just when you have the screw to fine tune the running of the watch.
Yes,
If you change the direction,
yes,
if you have a play between the ratchet
yeah, the ratchet, yeah,
and the screw
yeah.
pinion,
It's not precise then otherwise, right?
it's a little bit more difficult for
Right.
the watchmaker. And here, the ratchet is elastic just in radial direction because of the special geometry in Liga.
Yes. So it actually compresses this way, but it can't move this way, right?
Yes.
And it's got like a spring-loaded form, so it's actually made of nickel phosphorus as well.
And we put the logo of Hublot inside to show that it's a original watch.
So there you guys have it. I wanted to thank Christophe Lyner in particular, who was part of the team, but a big part of the team who helped to create this movement. I have now realized that this movement is in fact pretty remarkable, right? I mean, again, as I said, double oscillating clutches with 2 pairs of Liga wheels each, one for the minute counter and one for the chronograph seconds, operated by a column wheel at 6 o'clock on the front side of the watch. It's got a ceramic ball bearing bidirectional automatic winding system. It is 6.75 in terms of the thickness. What's the diameter of the movement?
30 millimeters.
30 millimeters. So just around 13 lines, is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. And then you've got this really interesting system using Liga technology also for the regulator of the balance wheel or adjusting the active length of the hairspring. And all in, I have to say, it's a pretty impressive performance package. So well done, Christophe.
Thank you, sir.
And I think we can say emphatically now there's actually no relationship between this and a Valjoux 7750.
Absolutely not. Very different movement from all movements, chronograph movements you have seen before.
Yes.
Very robust architecture.
And a real performance machine, right? You know, super
is,
reliable,
yes.
easy to service, reliable, and a very innovative performance machine. And again, my favorite part is that you can actually look at the clutch operating from the front of the watch and see that like Liga clutch wheel engaging and disengaging from the chronograph seconds wheel, which is super fun. So guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you like our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. And thank you so much for this time, understanding finally how cool the Unico movement is.
Thank you.